We have a sellout infestation here in America. Those who refuse the gift of eternal life are condemned to wander in the darkness of eternal night. Coming this fall from SJS Direct. A couple of days ago, Charles Barkley made a statement on the NBA pregame show stating that the murder of Breonna Taylor was completely different than the murder of George Floyd. And as this whole interview was going on, Shaquille O'Neal, another former NBA legend who is a deputy in law enforcement, went out of his way to go out here and agree with your Charles Barkley. Now, most people will look at this incident as yet another incident of blacks bootlicking, but I look at it as a symptom of a larger problem here in these United States of America as related to the black community. And that larger problem in the black community is we have a sellout problem, and that sellout problem is where these sold out individuals are presented as the mouthpiece to black America and presented to push a narrative to justify wrongdoing by these rogue police officers, these race soldiers who have infiltrated law enforcement, and these suburban commandos who go out of their way to terrorize black people when they enter areas that these suburban commandos believe they should not have come to. Moreover, you have another problem as related to this sellout culture of individuals who are in prosecutors' offices who go out of their way to justify the behaviors of these rogue police officers by excusing them instead of using their power to go out of their way to send a message to these rogue police officers, race soldiers, and these suburban commandos that there is going to be a line in the sand as related to black life, and that they will be held accountable if they take a black life unjustly, and they will be punished to the full extent of the law that they want to go out here and enforce, and that they will be held to the same standard of law that they allege to enforce. And that can't be done because those who believe in sellout culture, they believe in being so-called fair, but their whole idea of fairness is not taking a critical and objective examination of the facts. And their whole viewpoint of those facts is distorted by a set of rose-colored glasses tinted by white supremacy. And because their view is tinted by white supremacy, these people really cannot see that these racists are out here doing wrong, and they try to find ways to excuse the wrongdoing they've participated in, trying to make it look like it's the facts of the case, when the clear fact is a lot of these people are clearly biased as related to black people. And it's really dangerous to have these people who participate in sellout culture in positions of power, but white supremacists love to put these kind of people in positions of power. And when they put people like this in positions of power, whether it be in the media, like your Charles Barkley, your Shaquille O'Neal, or your Candace Owens, they are out there to be the mouthpieces to push what many believe is a counter narrative as related to the black community, but it is the actual narrative that the white supremacists wanted to be pushed in the black community. As long as they've got somebody to justify the violence perpetrated on black people, then there won't be any real serious push for justice. Because if the celebrities get out here and start pushing a certain narrative, they think they look like they're somebody out here who is justifying this stuff and making it look like to these white masses that this is perfectly fine. So that's what they want to do on the mouthpiece side. But the legal side, with these people like your Daniel Camerons and your Eric Holders and the female prosecutor who prosecuted Bill Cosby on those false sexual assault charges, that is far more dangerous to black people than most think. And it's more dangerous than most people think is because these people are in positions of power in these district attorney's office and attorney general's offices to go out here and set legal precedent to protect black people. But instead of going out of their way to protect black people, these people go along with the system of white supremacy here in America, and these people justify these racial profiling and murders as related to racial profiling of black people and allow the status quo to continue to go on. Because if it wasn't for people like your Eric Holder on the federal level to set a legal precedent by not pursuing these federal civil rights charges against George Zimmerman and people like Daniel Pantaleo and many others during the Obama years, we wouldn't have the murders of people like George Floyd today, and we probably would not have the murder of people like Breonna Taylor. Moreover, if it wasn't for these state people like your Daniel Cameron, we wouldn't have, again, these types of things going on because these individuals, they believe that by bootlicking white supremacy, they're going to get some sort of favor and some sort of pass because they believe they are special blacks, just like your Charles Barkley, your Shaquille O'Neal, and your Candace Owens, and many others. They all believe they are special black people and that they don't have to experience the same racism and white supremacy. And they believe that because they are so-called good blacks, white supremacists won't treat them the same way other black people are treated. So these type of individuals, they are out here and they are a part of a culture, and more people have to look at the bigger picture as related to the culture. I mean, a lot of people, they look at the individuals and their statements, but I look at the bigger picture as related to those individuals. And the bigger picture as related to those individuals is pushing a narrative that that black people are perfectly fine with the status quo of being in a second-class status. Black people are perfectly fine with their lives not having any sort of value, and black people are perfectly fine without there being a line in the sand as related to how they will be treated in this society, and that it's perfectly fine for people like your rogue police officers, your race soldiers, and your suburban commandos to go out here and take the lives of black people. Now, your Charles Barkley wanted to make the argument that the case of Breonna Taylor was different from George Floyd, but I'm going to have to disagree with that because when I take a critical examination of the case of Breonna Taylor, it is the same as George Floyd because this is about establishing legal precedent as related to the way black people will be treated by the police, because the warrants that were issued in this case were quite questionable, and the whole no-knock raid was quite questionable. And again, we're not seeing any sort of clear facts on the case because the Attorney General and the prosecutors keep flipping the script every 8 seconds, so we don't get a consistent set of facts as related to the information on the case. And because we're not getting a consistent set of facts on the case, it's looking like this case was one of these shaky cases that used to be common during the 1980s during the war on drugs. And during that so-called war on drugs, which was actually a war on black people, your police would go out of their way to, and the DEA would go out of their way to issue these no-knock warrants. And these no-knock warrants were not just about trying to find so-called drugs, they were about terrorizing people in communities. So this was about terrorizing black people, and what happened was they weren't expecting Breonna Taylor's boyfriend to be carrying a loaded firearm and being able to shoot back. and they wanted to make it look like, they wanted to find some type of story to make it look like Breonna Taylor was the bad guy, but they were the bad guy because they were going in, again, on a questionable warrant and questionable information, and that was common during the war on drugs because a lot of drug addicts would give questionable information in order to get money for more dope. But in this case, we have a lot of shaky information, and what this is all about is trying to cover some tracks and try to give some people a pass in the Louisville prosecutor's office and law enforcement because they want to be able to continue going out and doing these type of things. And that's what this was all about until the whole Breonna Taylor case exploded. And now we have an end to no-knock warrants in Louisville, which was one good thing to come out of it. But there was no justice for Breonna Taylor and setting that legal precedent. And that's the one thing that people in the sellout culture don't want to do, is they don't want to create a level playing field. They don't want to create a platform where black people can all get the same kind of justice. And the reason why they don't want all black people to get the same type of justice from the justice system is because these people want to be the special black folks in white supremacy, and they want the special position offered by white supremacists to them. So they want to be what are called the house Negroes and the elite Negroes over the entire black community, and they want to be able to have that type of special position. So they don't want things to be the same. They don't want there to be equal justice because they are receiving benefits from white supremacy, and they think that these benefits are special, and that's one of the more troubling things. But the thing that black people need to do as related to these people who are these sellouts, like your Daniel Camerons, like your Charles Barkleys, like your Shaquille O'Neals, is we have to hit them in the wallet, one, by not watching things like the NBA, and two, by also doing it by cutting off all contact with these kinds of individuals. Because when you have sellouts in your community, they only get power by having access to other members of the black community. Now, when the members of the black community start to close ranks, like we did with Halle Berry after she won that Oscar for Monsters Ball, that person starts to lose power and influence with these whites that they like to bootlick and brown nose. And because they can't get information from this house black, then what happens is this individual starts to lose their social value in white circles. And like Halle Berry, what happens is these individuals start to become ostracized by the black community, and that ostracization is what's going to lead to them participating in desperate stunts like your Halle Berry to get attention from the black community. But when the black community closes ranks on these individuals and leaves them to their white slave masters, that has a profound impact on dealing with the sellout culture, because the only way to stop individuals like your Charles Barkleys, your Terry Crews, your Halle Berrys, and many others out here from making these types of statements that put the lives of other black people at risk is to cut these people out of black social circles and let them leave them to the fate that they have with their slave masters. If they want to go out here and be slaves to their masters, then we have to leave them to their masters. And if they want to make attention-seeking statements about black people, what we need to do is tune them out and then put up counter messages to let people know we are not in support of this individual, we want nothing to do with this individual, and that this individual has nothing to do with the black community or anything in the black community. So we have to let them just go out there and be with their slave masters. And when they get their N-word moment, do not allow them to come back, because if they were out here and wanting to be with the white man, and when the white man turns on them, and he will turn on them, because white supremacy always breaks its toys, and it always goes out here and breaks its bootlicks. Once they have outlived their usefulness, then these individuals need to be set as an example of what happens when you go out here and you push these so-called counter narratives, and you make it harder for other black people out here to receive equal rights in the American society and equal rights in the justice system. We have to set a standard for how we're going to be treated, and a standard for what type of boundaries we're going to set. And the boundary we have to set for ourselves is that we're not going to deal with sellouts, and when sellouts are revealed and shown to us, we are going to punish those sellouts for crossing over, and we're going to punish them to the point where we're not going to keep any sort of social contact or any sort of social interaction, because any social interaction with this individual is something that does harm to black people, and we as a collective have to cut these people out of our communities, because every other group does this. Latinos do this, Asians do this, East Indians do this, Arabs do this. People who are considered traitors to the community are excommunicated socially, and once they are excommunicated socially, nobody in the community has any contact with that individual, and if something bad happens to them, something bad just happens to them. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my SJS Direct publications that feature positive images of black people, like the ISIS series, the Eastdeem series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, and my men's issues books like The Man Crisis, you'll find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords and the iBook Store and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.